Welcome to Chasing Tents, everyone. My name is Abhi. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm at PCR Performance in Midlands in Cannock, UK. This is a very special place for me because these guys sorted my Aprilia RSV4 RF before I went to Portimao 2 years ago. But today I'm here for a remap on the BMW S1000RR full Akrapovic system, and they're going to sort it out. Now, PCR Performance, if a lot of you don't know, are the brains behind the British Superbike team, and they also have a British Superstock team running in the British Superbike Championship. So let me show you something. So they obviously about 3 or 4 years ago they had the Suzuki. So that's Billy McConnell, who I'm a big fan of, and I'll tell you that in a minute why. And that's Paul Curran. So PCR Paul Curran Racing. You know, he's the main tech brains behind the whole kind of PCR performance here. That's Billy's helmet, and he's given the helmet to these guys as a thank you. So Billy McConnell, who is a British Superstock racer, I think he finished second in this year's championship, British Superstock Championship. He's the guy who 3 years ago at Almere Circuit got me down to, I think, a 1 minute 51 or something. He basically improved me by 5 seconds, which is massive. You know, so I'm a huge fan of Billy McConnell in general anyways. So these guys are fantastic. I'm a big fan of them. But let me show you what we're going to do. So first things first, Rich Energy. Let me tell you something actually, something more intriguing. This was the first time I actually tasted Rich Energy, who are the main kind of sponsors of OMG Racing. So that was quite interesting for me because I've never tasted Rich Energy before. No, it's not a plug for them, I'm just telling you something interesting. Anyways, if we have a look at these two bikes, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think the same gentleman who owns that M1000RR also owns this one, and look at the brakes on that one. So it's not about these two bikes today, it's about that one. So it's a full system, and we're going to do a remap, and I'll get Dutch, who is the guy who's going to be remapping them. And let me tell you something interesting. Why have I come, or why did I recommend my friend to use PCR Performance? Because last 2 years they've been running the Superstock and the Superbike team, so they know one or two things about how to properly remap a BMW S1000RR now, or M1000RR. Now you're going to say that, oh, British Superbikes use more tech, which is a controlled system. Yes, fair enough, but still they know a lot about how to really thoroughly remap these bikes. So this was the best place for a S1000RR. So I'll now get Dutch to just explain how it all works, and then we'll do a before and after run on the bike, and hopefully we'll get some horsepower out of it. Also, one thing I really want to mention, the guy who owns the bike isn't going to take it on the track. He's not a track person, I'll be honest with you. So I think what he really wants out of this remap is optimum fueling, air mixture and all sorts, just bike to run properly, because he's changed the exhaust and he just wants the ECU to know that exhaust has been changed so the bike runs beautifully. So I thought I'll include that. So the bike's not going to go on the track, so I thought I'll include that. Okay, let's get in the dyno booth.
Hi Abby, welcome to PCR Performance. My name's Dutch. As you can see, we've got a brand new BMW S1000RR on the dyno today. We're here to be mapping this. We use a solution called Sport, which is an on-chip management system where we can adjust the fuel tables, the ignition, and a couple of other parts that we can turn off, like the pair valve, the exhaust valves, just because we've got a lovely full Akrapovic full system on this bike, so we just want to make the most of it. If you'd like to come over here, I can quickly talk through the mapping software that we use. And as you can see here, I've brought up two tables that are the very heart of what we do. They are both fueling. This is just a 3D representation of what we're going to do. So this is, as you see it here, this is standard as the bike is now. What we will do is we will get the bike on the dyno, we will go through all the various throttle percentages, and we will get a baseline for those throttle percentages. And then we can make the adjustments, because as these bikes come out of the factory, as we all know, they have to comply with the emissions regulations for the specific year, so we can circumvent those by getting the fueling to the correct ratio, which will result in the bike feeling better, fueling better and going better. At PCR Performance, we use a DynoJet 250i dynamometer. This is what measures the bike's output. As you can see on the screen up here, we've got lots of information that we can obtain from the bike. We've got an AFR ratio, obviously an RPM. We've got power and also a TPS gauge, so that's your throttle position gauge. There's a few other things on here that we can also have a look at, so it just helps in the tuning of the bike. And then also on a day like today, because we're getting into almost the winter, late autumn, you have got to consider stuff like your temperature, the pressure and the humidity that we've currently got. Now, today we're looking at 13 degrees with a 64% humidity. Now, that's quite cool for UK weather. Most of our customers don't tend to ride in this weather, although being the UK, we all ride in all weathers, we know that. But with it being 13 degrees today, that means we'll have a lovely, dense, cold airflow coming into the dyno. As you can see here, we've got our air funnel, which this provides us with 100 miles per hour wind, straight into the front of the bike, which can replicate the ram air and obviously the cooling that you would get when riding at speed. So one thing we haven't really touched on with this motorcycle is the lovely Akrapovic exhaust system that it's got on it. Full TI system. Not only are they just lighter, but the colour that you get with a TI system is second to none. The way it blues up and just the general colour, absolutely lovely. He's gone with the good cam for the UK, the slightly longer cam, as opposed to the GP Shorty, which is just down to here in a slightly different end can design. This gives a lovely balance of power and noise without being, I mean, these are very loud anyway, but without being over the top. You can get the Shorty cans, which, to be fair, a shorter exhaust will produce a slightly little bit more peak horsepower. But in the UK, if you ever take your bike on track, you would never get past noise regulations with the Shorty can. The longer can, a lot of the time, even has to be baffled in the UK because we run such strict noise regulations on track. But for the road, absolutely beautiful system. The sample pipe that we take from in here, because the BMW uses 4 Lambda sensors, we get a probe down to the exhaust, and what we try to do is where the 2 come back into 1 here, we try to get the end of the probe just about here, because then you've got a balance between the 2 cylinders that come here and the 2 cylinders that come this side, so we get an aggregated value for what the bike is doing in total if we sample just beyond this Y piece. If you start going too far forward, you're only ever going to be sampling 2 of the cylinders at any time. Today the bike comes in what we call stock form, including the stock tyres. Now obviously when you're on track you'll be using a slick or a very lightly treaded tyre. The Michelin Power RS, original equipment on this bike, they're a very good tyre, but they are a little harder than what most people use on track. Now this is a road bike, so that's fine, but what you'll find, this tyre will give a slightly higher brake horsepower figure than if you put a slick on there. So if you're running your slick, you tend to expect around a 10 to 15% loss in peak power. This one should stay very consistent over the course of the runs, whereas a slick over time can get a little bit too hot and you'll find that it causes drag, and so your peak power figure can actually be slightly reduced if it's spent a lot of the time on the dyno. What tends to happen in that situation is we'll let the bike cool down and then we'll come back to it when the tyre's a bit cooler, and then we can get the peak power figure again.
Okay, just a little bit of update here. So they've turned the bike off after heating it up properly. So the heat really kind of disperses everywhere where it needs to go, whether it's oil or the engine cases and all sorts. And then we're going to do the first run. I thought I'll include this little part so you guys know what actually happens, different stages of a remap.
So we've now got a warm bike. We're just about to do the first power run. We'll do a few of these just to get a baseline figure, and then we can start working from there, and we can work on to the final tune, which will be ready in a few hours. Okay, so we've got a nice hot bike. We've done a couple of first power runs. We're looking at 192. That will increase slightly with a bit more temperature in the bike, which I'll obviously get to. And then once we've gone through the tuning, as you can see on the graphs, so we've got the main power one here. This is the power figure. And then we've got the torque here. And then the bottom graph, this is the air fuel ratio. So the dotted line that you see is set at 13.2 AFR. And that is what we consider our target. And we will try and compress that line as best we can to get the fueling right. And you'll see a reasonable upgrade in power and torque, and the part throttle percentages, which is the more of a concern on a road bike. The part throttles, which is the throttle connection, that will be much better.
Well, there's been a bit of a twist in the tail. So what's happened is basically during the dyno, unfortunately the tyre had a plug in it which was badly plugged. Maybe it was done by the current owner, maybe it was done by the previous owner. I'm not a big fan of plugs, to be honest, on tyres, but yeah, that's getting sorted at the moment. So yeah, unfortunately that is getting plugged at the moment temporarily, so we can at least complete the dyno, and then a brand new Michelin Sport RS has been ordered, and hopefully that plug will be sorted out, and we can at least complete the dyno, and then we'll take it from there. The main obviously aim is to get the dyno done. A lot of the work has been done, but I really wanted to show you guys this bike. Look at the livery on this BMW. Look at that. That is just absolutely fantastic. PCR Performance on there. This looks absolutely stunning with livery, which looks absolutely sublime. And I know a lot of people don't like headlight decals, but in World Superbikes and stuff like that, they still put these headlights decals to make them look like kind of road bike versions, and I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, I can't show you the other side because of the whole British Superbike thing going on. So yeah, that was a little bit unfortunate to have a puncture on the dyno while the bike was getting dynoed, but hopefully we'll get it sorted, and I'll give you the results in a bit.
So we've just finished mapping the BMW S1000RR. Great little bike to map. We've spent a lot of time on it. The BMWs do take quite a while to get them right and spot on. We've ended up with a nice peak horsepower figure of 203.86 and maximum torque of 89.71 foot-pounds. The AFR curve is now looking much more respectable. The drivability of the bike on the part throttles around town will feel like a new bike. We did have one tiny issue with the motorcycle. Upon some of the full power runs, it appears that the rear tyre has got that hot. A previous puncture repair has failed. So we've had to quickly patch that up, get it back on the dyno just to finish off. And as you can see, the results are fantastic and the customer should be very happy. We mentioned previously that we run a DynoJet 250i dyno here at PCR Performance. This is a very accurate dyno. We need the accuracy not only for customers' bikes, but obviously we run the race team in a separate workshop. And if the race team doesn't have accurate results, we can't understand what's going on with the bikes.
So with the stock system is still around 190, 192, 193, and with the Akrapovic, without a remap, it was around the same figure, but it was very lean. So, you know, this is something for you guys out there. If you are going to change the exhaust properly, you know, if you're going to keep the slip-on, change the slip-on, but keep the cat and stuff like that, maybe a remap isn't needed. But if you're going to remove the cat or maybe a full system, definitely a remap really tells the ECU what's actually happened. So the air and fuel mixture, everything is spot on, and obviously you gain power. So, and reduction of weight as well, which is very, very massive. I don't know how much weight reduction happened here, but I will put that somewhere in the video so you guys will know that part as well. So guys, you know what, we got exactly what we wanted. This bike is meant for the road and the power. We were never chasing power. We got a really decent power on this bike. Middle range and lower range is just spot on, and that's what we came for. So massive thank you to PCR Performance for having me here. Sorry I didn't show you a lot of the British Superbike stuff because I just didn't want to stick my camera in there. Just didn't want to do that, you know what, you know, and they've got some work going on in there for the 2022 season, and I'll just leave them to it. But PCR Performance, throw them some love online. They don't need no plug, unlike that tire we had today, which needed a plug, but PCR Performance don't need any plugs. They do a fantastic job. They run a great racing team, and they also, I think now, if I'm not wrong, have an e-bike kind of a side business thing, or a special branch, I should say. I shouldn't say side business, but yeah, great bunch of people. They welcomed me here. They showed me everything, how everything works, and I was just grateful. So guys, if you like this video, throw a like and also subscribe. I don't really shout out about subscribe and like too much in the middle of the video, but if you gained some value or some entertainment value out of it, do throw some love to me as well. And take care, look after yourself, and stay safe.